Hello, I'm Barbara Blodgett, and I'm chair of ATFE, and I am having a conversation today with Dean Bucalos, who is executive director of an organization in Kentucky that is called Mission Behind Bars and Beyond. Mission Behind Bars and Beyond also goes by the nickname MB3, has the mission to educate every community across the Commonwealth of Kentucky to welcome, support, mentor, and equip returning citizens with the tools to successfully re-enter society. So Dean Bucalos has an MDiv and a JD and is ordained in the Disciples of Christ denomination. And I guess one thing I don't know is how long you've been with MB3, and so you can tell us that. They have many programs, one of which is called Nurture, Support, and Accountability Groups. And that's one program among others that they involve interns in. And MB3 has had interns from seminaries and from social work schools. So I read on their website that although mentoring returning citizens now is never more needed, it is they are faced with the challenge of the model needing to be dramatically changed. So that's what we want to talk about today. So thanks for joining me, Dean. My first question for you is something that we've been asked. How can we conduct meaningful field education if the COVID crisis prevents students from having any in-person contact with people in the field?
That's a good question. And one of the things that we have been able to do in the past, and I'll explain a little bit about how our program works, Barbara. We actually have a worshiping community inside a women's detention facility in Louisville, and they meet every week for worship, and we have invited outside churches to come in to worship with them and have their pastors lead worship. That's one component of our ministry. Another component is a mentoring program, and the way that those two are connected is that many of the people that we end up recruiting and identifying as possible mentors have been people who've come in to the worship services and interacted with the people who are residents at this facility. What we discerned early on was that an important aspect of our ministry that had been missing was some degree of case management, of trying to help the people who are residents there transition over to the community after they've been released. We try to get our mentoring groups started before people leave incarceration, and then walk alongside them for about 6 months to a year after that. And so we have been working with the University of Louisville Kent School of Social Work, and last year had our first student intern who helped provide some of that case management and also help as a resource to our mentoring groups. Our mentoring groups are made up of about 3 to 5 volunteers that we train, which we do the training traditionally in person. But last summer, we fortuitously decided to put our training on videos. So our training protocol is now on videos, which has been great for us now because we can have people to those videos so we can still continue to provide training for our mentors. But even today, I tried to connect some of our mentors with one of the women who is a resident. So we have not been able to go to that facility since March. And that's, in some ways has really hamstrung our ministry, because it's all about relationships and meeting with people and developing those relationships. So we've been managing to kind of keep a connection with the folks behind bars in a variety of different ways, but we haven't actually been able to be present with them. So not wanting to lose momentum for our program, I actually uh, prepared 60 packets for the women who live there, sort of reintroducing our ministry and providing them with application forms for our mentoring program, as well as the guidelines for the mentoring program, and delivered those to the facility.
Oh,
And then the women fill those out, and those who are interested, um, they um, they let me know, and I picked those up. So we ended up with about 15 new applications,
oh,
um, which I was very pleased that the women responded that way,
yeah,
but it added some work onto my plate. Uh,
sure.
so
But they're confident they'll be able to get good care.
we hope, yes.
Yeah. I
So
mean, 15 of them wouldn't have signed up if they hadn't thought that, even during this crisis.
yeah. So we have a list of people who are trained mentors in different communities in Kentucky, and so um, all of our work right now is done by the internet and digitally. So I basically recruited 3 of our mentors and asked them if they'd be interested in working with this one woman who's going to be released in early August, and tried to describe to them how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which right now we don't have the structure to make that work as well as I'm hoping that we will. And
We got a couple months.
we do have a couple of months. And one of the things that we're doing as an organization right now is I am talking to the directors of these facilities to see if we could basically donate a laptop to each
Oh,
facility, and make that laptop available to the women, um, uh, to meet with people on the outside at designated times
hmm.
through the Zoom platform. So
Oh,
that
interesting.
if that um, works, and the complications obviously are trying to um, figure out what restrictions there might be with and how that would work with respect to the facility's staffing and
Right.
how much time it would take for them to do that. But in in um, in my opinion, I think it's a reasonable solution where we can begin making some appointments with folks who are residents there, and they have Wi-Fi at this facility. Connect them on a Zoom interview with their
Mm-hmm.
mentors,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to be a way for us to continue this process. Also, with that system in place, we're hoping that our student interns will be able to do the same thing.
Right.
That they'll be able to establish some times that they can meet with the women that they're working with behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an office in Louisville with a computer, and that they can work out of that office
Right.
and schedule meetings. So that's how we're hoping to go forward with this as a way to circumvent the restrictions of our actually being in the
Right.
facility, and we're experimenting with that. So
Yeah.
part of that is my convincing the directors that this is safe and
Yeah.
this is something that can be controlled,
Right.
um, and then working with folks that provide some of our technical assistance to be able to set up the computers so that they're limited in what access the women might have, um, and then work on scheduling. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I think it's a workable solution. It's the benefit to the facility is they really don't do much in the way of case management.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have trained personnel on their staff that can
That
do
do
that.
that.
And so we've been fortunate to have a good relationship with the Kent School of Social Work, and we have a volunteer um, social worker who has volunteered to be their field supervisor.
Right,
So she will, I think you mentioned how a question about how supervision would take place.
right,
What has happened in the past when we actually had an on-site person, Dr. Heitzman actually sat in on some of the interviews
right,
and some of the meetings. And um, my guess is that she'll just sit in at a Zoom meeting as
right.
well as those things transpire.
Right. I was going to ask that. That's another question we get sometimes is how to supervise students who are interning remotely. And so you talked about your intern will probably be able to come into the Louisville office um, by fall and then work from there via Zoom to do the case management. Would you have the supervisor join the Zoom call or just be in the office, or what do you anticipate in terms of supervision?
Well, basically, we'll leave that up to the supervisor and the student. But my hope is that she would participate in some of the Zoom calls.
Yeah,
I mean, the interviews that we had with these students were just done by Zoom. So I've not met one of our social work students. We have two this coming school year.
yeah.
One we were able to meet before all this craziness started. The second one, we just received her application about 2 weeks ago. So we were able to meet with her online
Right.
and it worked well. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that was a decent platform. I think she felt comfortable. I think people are more comfortable now doing this. So
Right.
I
So
think,
even deciding to launch an internship and not having met the person in person, it's working.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, everything we've done was remote. So
Yeah.
yeah, and we're very um, conscientious about wanting to keep our students safe.
Right.
So, our expectations are realistic. We don't, and the school is very um, adamant about keeping them safe. So there's
Right. Sure.
certain restrictions that they have placed.
That the school has placed.
Right.
Right.
That we're
And
not.
you're finding those manageable to work within
Yeah. I mean, they're basically the same guidelines that.
that you would have. Yeah.
Um,
Great.
so a lot of it just depends on a willingness of the facility to
Sure.
work with us. And we've been at this facility um, for 7 years now.
To
So
help
we
to
have a
have that
pretty good
relationship.
track record and they
Yeah.
trust us and know who we are um,
Right.
and there's good communication there. Um, we're starting a new congregation in another facility, a men's facility,
Huh.
and we'll deliver a laptop there as well, and probably have one of our social work students um, uh, work out of that site.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be a little bit more challenging because we haven't worked with them before, so we're going to have to establish our trusting relationship that
Sure.
and they had a lot of great questions. You know, how long are the meetings going to be? When are they going to be scheduled? Do we have to have staff present? Um, and we haven't really worked out all those details with them.
But you're hoping to.
Um, I look at that as something that is a kind of a work in progress.
Sure. Well, that's really encouraging to hear that even in this time you're moving forward with your hope to establish a new congregation. That's great. One final question we sometimes get is whether or not you'll be able to provide the hours expectation that the schools have for an internship.
That's a good question, and the Kent School has pretty um, ambitious um, requirements for their master level students. So these are advanced master level social work students. So they're
Right.
primarily in their last year, and I don't know how many hundreds of hours um, they have to complete. Um,
Our internships in in theological field education are typically 400 over the course of 2 semesters.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. I mean, that sounds similar. I'm They're as concerned about meeting their hours as the students are, and the school is. So they understand that this is kind of a new frontier for them as well.
Right.
Um, I don't, I don't anticipate that that's going to be a real challenge. I mean, I think we're going to have enough work for them to do. Uh,
Good.
and the other piece of that is that there's other work that they can do outside that facility, working with some of our mentors. So part of it is resourcing them with the connecting points to
Mhm.
community resources. So
Yeah.
I think that we're very fortunate. The two social work students that we have, um, I've been very impressed with. They're very mature young women who have done internships before,
Right.
and they seem to be both quick studies and overachievers. So,
That helps.
so a good
Never hurts.
a good
Anyway.
combination for us. Uh, I don't know. We're not. The school didn't seem worried about the hours,
Okay.
um, and so if they're not worried about it, I'm not sure.
You're not going to be.
And I don't know whether they will be willing to adjust that under these circumstances
Right.
or not.
Yeah.
I know that higher ed is doing a lot of things that they've not done before
That's right.
to
We
accommodate
all are.
the pandemic. So
Right.
I think that that's probably going to be the case here. I don't know if they'll um, reduce the number of hours, but I think they'll probably be more flexible in their requirements, is my
Right.
guess. Um,
Right.
but the fact that we have somebody that they have approved as a social work field supervisor, I think is going to be helpful. So from our perspective, as well as from the school's perspective, I think that if we are in danger of not meeting the hours, we'll learn about that early on. I mean, if it's not
Right.
working, we'll figure that out.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
we want to make this
You want to make it
uh,
work.
we want to make it a positive experience for the students as well.
Sure.
We don't want to be an impediment to their graduation by them not getting enough hours.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's going to work. To some extent, we don't really have a choice. I mean, we have
Right.
people who are in need.
Yeah.
We have students that have the skill set that can help these folks. It's just a matter of figuring out how to put that
How to
puzzle
put
together.
those two together.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what internships and field education are all about ultimately. So, well, I want to thank you so much for your time today and your insight into this one really important ministry going on in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I hope and trust that the model and the innovation you're trying will be inspiring to others.
Glad to be of help. And if anybody has any questions or um, wants to follow anything up, I'd be more than happy to talk with them. I think you went to our website, Barbara, and we
Mhm.
prepared for our mentors some guidelines on of the best way to sort of navigate this
Yes, you did.
unusual time, um, which I think have been helpful to those folks. And I think for field education, having those guidelines set out with some um, creative direction can be very helpful.
Yeah, it was those guidelines, in fact, that I stumbled across on your website that made me realize, oh, this is really an organization that has thought through a transition to new ways of ministering, and I should speak with them.
It can be done.